The Indianapolis Colts and the Denver Broncos face off yet again in another showing for Peyton Manning's love. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is a collab of your daily podcast covering the Indianapolis Colts and the Denver Broncos, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks of HorseshoeHuddle.com and, of course, the Locked On Colts podcast. I am joined today by Sayre Bedinger of the Locked On Broncos podcast. And even though I teased in the opening, we're not going to sit here and debate who Peyton Manning belongs to. We can share. We got joint custody of Peyton, or at least I'm gonna argue for that there. But we got everything covered for you guys today. We're gonna talk all about the Colts and Broncos for this upcoming weekend. Talk about the biggest storylines, the biggest matchups, and what the keys to victory are for these two teams. So, Sayre, since you are the guest and you're coming into Indy, what do you think is the biggest storyline for the Denver Broncos this week?
Well, I think the biggest storyline for the Broncos is, can the offense catch up to the defense at all? And is that even possible, right? Because the defense for the Denver Broncos was outstanding in week one. Obviously, they got to Cam Ward 6 times, allowed just 12 points, the fewest amount of yards of any defense in the entire NFL. And of course, by comparison, if the offense struggles at all, it's going to be like, hey, why is the offense not doing its part? But to say they didn't do their part, that might be an understatement, because the offense turned the ball over 3 times. You had a muffed punt for a 4th turnover. You had 2 turnovers on downs for the Broncos offense. Just not a good game at all in week one. Didn't inspire much confidence in the fan base. So the biggest question, the biggest storyline is, can that offense catch up against the Colts?
Yeah, and I think one thing to add to that too is last year we saw this Broncos offense, even though they put up 31 points against the Colts, it was another tough showing for Bo Nix in that game too. I think he had 3 first-half interceptions against this Colts team in what was essentially a playoff game for both these two teams. So getting that Broncos offense going, was it more, in your opinion, because of like Bo Nix's struggles, or just the whole offense in general was out of sorts?
It really felt like the whole offense was out of sorts, right? I mean, Bo Nix's mistakes came after other mistakes as well, right? You had a dropped potential touchdown by Tyler Bidet, a screen pass from about 20 or so yards out. That, I mean, he just had a clear path to the end zone, just dropped a screen pass. And that's the kind of stuff that you can't have, because then when mistakes follow that, obviously then you're going back to that point and you're saying, hey, if this was different, right? So Bo, I think, tried to press a little bit too much on one of his interceptions, a little bit reckless with, his mechanics and things like that. And you almost wonder, is he just trying too much? Is he, not trusting in his protection? What's the case there? But it just didn't feel like a clean operation. We were looking all last season for what's the easy button for the Denver offense, right? And didn't feel like we really found it at any point. And that was kind of the case against the Titans as well. Didn't really feel like there was any sort of easy button for this team.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the Colts, I think that transitions really well here, because for the Colts, it's how much can this easy button last for this entire Colts team? Because week one, every aspect of that game was on easy mode for this Colts team. They came out the gate fast. They went out and got 3 points right out the gate. They got the interception on the next drive, which they turned into 7 points the other way. And then just from there, it was a dominant showing for this Indianapolis Colts team. And for a team that a lot of people expect to be a bottom 5, bottom 10 team in football this year, how much of that first week is a mirage of week one, just random occurrences? Or is this what this Colts team is going to be? Are they going to be a competitive roster that can push for a playoff spot and maybe make a team like Denver sweat? So I just think the biggest storyline for the Colts is looking at the team in totality, saying, how much can they ride this hot streak that they're going into this game after that week one dominant showing against the Miami Dolphins?
Right, because it's a lot of new pieces, right? It's a new defensive coordinator. It's a new starting quarterback after, benching a first-round pick, essentially, and really getting this new era. While all the while, Shane Steichen, from the outside looking in, it almost feels like, hey, you entered this year kind of on the hot seat. If you're going to bench a former top 5 pick and put Daniel Jones out there, feels like you're a bit on the hot seat, but it just also felt like this Colts roster is way too good at a lot of different spots for them to be as bad as a lot of people are expecting. Was that something that you kind of anticipated going into week one as well, of just saying, hey, there's too many pieces? Like there's Michael Pittman Jr., there's Tyler Warren, like Alec Pierce is the fourth guy in the pecking order at receiver. I mean, when you're that good and that deep at the skill positions and you make additions like Cam Bynum, Charvarius Ward, who I know we're monitoring this week on the injury report, when you add guys like that to an already talented roster, I mean, yeah, what was your expectation going into this? Because it feels like they should be competing.
Yeah, I was not buying into the national narrative that they were going to be this bottom 3, bottom 4, bottom 5 team. I mean, you guys saw last year in Denver where, again, the Colts were trading punches with the Broncos. Arguably, we're going to win that game if Jonathan Taylor doesn't drop that ball at the goal line in what was essentially a playoff game. And that was with Richardson starting at quarterback, with Flacco starting games last year. So I never bought into the notion that this team was going to be some bottom 5 team. But to be completely transparent, I didn't expect them to come out and win by 25 in week 1 either, and have 100% of their offensive drives turn into points. So I think there is going to be a middle ground between those two aspects. But like you said, this is a talented Colts team, and anyone who thinks, you can just look at this roster and say like, oh, Daniel Jones is starting quarterback, that's an easy win there. I think as long as Jones just operates like the point guard he did last week, this team is talented enough to compete with anybody, including the Broncos this week. I think it's going to be a very competitive game, like it was through 3 quarters last year between these two teams. And the Colts seem to have found their footing at least a little bit in week 1. So both these teams kind of riding different vibes, I guess, going into week 2, but both coming off of wins, which is really fun for both of them. So we'll see if like the Broncos offense can figure it out, if the Colts can just maintain what they're doing. But yeah, these are pretty impressive storylines for both these teams going into week 2.
Yeah, it's really exciting because it's an opportunity for both of these teams to get 2 early AFC wins. We're talking about 2 teams that last year, I mean, yeah, it was really on the line in that game that they played, which wasn't like at the very end of it was at the end of the regular season, but it wasn't like we're talking week 17 and 18. I mean, that game had playoff implications, near the end of the season. But if these 2 teams can get off to 2-0 starts, both against AFC opponents, and get those wins under your belt, that's going to pay off huge, because it gives you that margin for error later in the year to say, all right, yeah, we're going through a cold spell, just like every team does at some point, seemingly. You have that built in. Okay, yeah, we got those 2 wins early in the year. How big does that feel now? That's where I think the stakes are so much higher in this type of a game early in the season, is knowing that these AFC wins over the past couple of seasons, they've mattered so much later in the year.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I always hear, I think Bill Belichick was the one who coined this, where September is the extended preseason, where you're still figuring yourself out as a team, figuring yourself out as a roster. But with it being an extended preseason, these games still count. So even if you're still finding your soul, finding out who you're going to be, you want to come out of this month 3-1, 4-0, even 2-2, whatever it's going to be, to give yourself that margin of error later in the season. Because when you hit those cold streaks, when the injuries pile up, you want to just stack those wins when you're healthy early in the year, so you can survive the grueling part of the season, get into the playoffs. And once you get in the playoffs, anyone has a chance. Well, maybe not in the AFC the last couple of years, but hopefully going forward, anyone has a chance when you get to the playoffs. So I think just getting these September wins are vital for both of these teams. But coming up, guys, we're going to continue this conversation on Colts and Broncos. We're going to talk about the most crucial matchups and how I think for both of these teams, it's going to come down to the trenches like it always does in the NFL. But first, Mazda craft cars are for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every single model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost every single season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. And also, guys, it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost, perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor that you love without ever leaving the green. I can't say my golf game is the best out there, but whenever I have a little bit of energy in me, I can at least put my heart into swinging the golf club. That's the best thing ever with it here. So 5-Hour Energy gives me that little boost that I need. Golf is all about those good times with good people, though, and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without ever leaving the course or chasing down the beverage cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up the trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary, excluding the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Alrighty, Locked On Everydayers. We are back with our Colts and Broncos preview. I am Zach Hicks, joined by Sayre Bedinger of Locked On Broncos. And now we're going to dive into the most crucial matchups for this weekend. So, Sayre, again, you are my guest here. We're going to be cordial on this show. Midwestern hospitality. What do you got here as your key matchup that you're looking for?
Well, I'm looking straight at the Colts skill players versus the Broncos defensive backs, and I'll lump in the linebackers there as well, because we know Tyler Warren was one of the highest graded players out of any rookie in the league, out of any tight end in the league in week one. And he is exactly what Sean Payton refers to when so many Broncos fans have been hearing this term joker. Tyler Warren is a joker. He can get handed the ball out of the backfield. You can give him the ball on a screen. You can, run him up the seam. You can do any sorts of things that you want to with him, and it really dictates everything else for a defense. And yeah, the Broncos have guys who can match up one-on-one with pretty much anybody. Pat Surtain, he can guard anybody. Riley Moss, we saw in week one, man, he can guard anybody when he's healthy. Jaquan McMillan made plays. Jahdae Barron made plays. But this week, we could be getting Dre Greenlaw in his debut for the Denver Broncos. We'll see what happens over the course of the week, but obviously one of their biggest additions this offseason, man. It just feels like that's the missing piece for this. And Justin Strnad played extremely well, but a guy like Dre Greenlaw is considered a top 5 player at his position. You get him back, it brings that toughness to your defense, continues to make it feel like you've got more than 11 guys out there. If he can be healthy for this game, I feel like that's a huge matchup to watch.
Yeah, this Denver Broncos defense is a fascinating one to study because it's not one of those defenses that leans too heavily on either the pass rush or pass coverage like we see across the league, where some teams just have a dominant front four and that front four carries the defense. Others have that dominant secondary. But if you look at the Broncos, they hit that key that you're looking for across the defense, where you have an impact player at each level of the defense. And once Greenlaw comes back, if it's going to be this week or next week, whenever it's going to be, they have true impact players at all levels of the defense. And that's not just kind of impact guys. It's like true impact players like Surtain and Bonito, who you didn't even mention there because you talked about the secondary. It's a good defense overall. And this Colts skill position group, I think, is going to be a good test for them, especially with Tyler Warren, like you mentioned, where the Colts in week one went out of their way to get the ball to Tyler Warren in terms of play action bootlegs, throwing it to him in the flat, to using him against zone beaters and blitz beaters over the middle, and then the occasional deep ball down the sideline. And I think the fun part is we still haven't seen enough of him at fullback. We still haven't seen enough of him at Wildcat quarterback, which I think we're going to get some of this year. So we might see even more wrinkles with that joker player that you mentioned there.
Yeah, that's exciting too for a player like him to be able to come into the NFL and do that right away. They're putting a lot on his plate. And like you said with Daniel Jones earlier in the show, that allows him to be that point guard out there, as opposed to feeling like you got to carry the weight of this offense on your shoulders. Like you've got to go make these big plays. No, you've got guys that can make plays for you. Just get the ball into their hands. Just be on time, be accurate, make good decisions. take sacks when you need to, but also push when you need to. And you have the opportunity to sort of dictate the pace of a game, even against a defense like this, to where you're just, hey, we can pick you apart with zone beaters. We can pick you apart. If you're going to blitz from over here, we'll throw it right at where you're blitzing from. You know what I'm saying? So that's a thing for this Colts team, I think, to watch for in this game. Is the Broncos could have given up a lot more plays against the Titans. Titans dropped a lot of passes. And you hate to say, well, they got lucky in the second half, but because the defense was dominant, I don't want to take away from that. But if the Colts aren't dropping a bunch of passes, you're going to be giving up a lot more than 12 points.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're going to give up that to anybody, not just the Colts, but to anyone if you're relying on drop passes. So that's really excellent analysis there with that week 1 game. I'm going to go to the other side of the ball because you handled a lot of that side there. The other side of the ball, the Colts defense is coming off a game against the Miami Dolphins where they had such a distinct game plan for Tua in that Dolphins offense, where it was in true passing situations, we're going to drop 8 guys into coverage because Tua's still going to throw that ball quick. So who cares about getting the pass rush? That ball is going to come out quick regardless. Let's drop 8 into coverage. We're going to mix in some corner blitzes, mix in some safety blitzes, and it was the perfectly crafted game plan for the Dolphins. That exact game plan is not going to work against the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix is fine with scrambling around. He wants to get the ball out quick too, don't get me wrong, but Bo Nix is not Tua where he has to be the point guard. He can be the playmaker as well. So you can't just drop 8 guys into coverage. So the biggest matchup for me is, can this Colts defensive line generate pressure in week 2? Can they generate pressure with 4, maybe with 5? Because this Denver Broncos O-line is one of the best in football, one of the best pass blocking offensive lines the last 2 years in the league. Have some really great players like Garrett Bowles, Quinn Meinerz, just fantastic players. And Bo Nix is good at evading pressure and getting the ball out. So I think for this Colts defense to have that same success they had in week 1, it's going to come down to generating more pressure. They didn't have to pressure Tua much because Tua, I guess, puts pressure on himself just to get that ball out quick. But with Bo Nix, if you drop 8 guys into coverage, he'll scramble. He'll run for 50, 60 yards in a game that Tua won't do. So that same game plan is not going to work. They're going to have to change this up a little bit, maybe do some more man coverage concepts. I'm curious to see what Lou Anarumo has. But again, how do they craft this game plan for him, and how do they get pressure on Bo Nix? Because that's going to be more important this week.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. Exactly. And I think with Bo Nix, there's this misconception out there that he really is a check down guy, or, really the only thing that he excels at is the short passing game. I think it's kind of the opposite. Like, he really excels pushing the ball downfield. Does he always make the right decision? No, but Sean Payton calls a ton of longer developing pass plays, deep in routes over the middle of the field, that he relies on that pass protection that you're talking about. He relies on guys clearing things out deep down the field to take those shot plays, because the short passing game is part of what they do. It's not just an extension of the run game, though. The Broncos really believe in guys like Marvin Mims after the catch, Troy Franklin after the catch, but they want to push the ball vertically as well. And they will do that a lot in this game to open up the running game. And I think that's the thing for Denver offensively, that matchup. Can you run the ball against this Colts defense, whatever they're throwing at you? Because they've struggled to run the ball effectively up until the 4th quarter against the Titans. They could not do it. So that offensive line versus the Colts defensive line, are you going to be able to get that push? Are you going to be able to create the running lanes for your backs out there? That's going to be huge in week 2.
Yeah, I think that's another good additional one to throw here at the end of this segment, where just the running game for the Broncos offense versus the Colts defense, because the Colts defense did struggle to stop the run last week. But again, for my money, I think Devon Achane is one of the best runners in football. You guys saw that a couple years ago with that 70 point just explosion that they had. Achane is a special talent. So it's hard for me to look at that game and say, this is what the Colts run defense is going to look. Although I do have some concerns because they're going to be a nickel or dime 90+% of the time. So these are going to be favorable boxes for the Broncos to run into. The Colts need to be on their P's and Q's when it comes to run fits, but the Broncos have an opportunity to exploit that. So I'm really curious to see what direction the running game goes for the Broncos, because J.K. Dobbins is not Achane. Now, R.J. Harvey has a little bit of explosiveness to him, a little bit of a boost to his game. But again, he's probably not the same as Achane even. So do the Colts contain the run a little bit better? Do they win at the point of attack? Or do the Broncos finally get their running game going in week 2?
Yeah, that's going to be really fun to watch because you're right. I mean, not everybody is Achan. He's a special player and he's got special speed, special vision. But yeah, the Broncos do have a couple of guys that provide something different than obviously what Javonte Williams brought to the table the past couple of years. A major disappointment, had just 26 rushing yards or 66 rushing yards on 26 attempts over his final 6 games with the team last season. I mean, that was their running back one last year. And so now you've got guys like Dobbins who can break tackles and RJ Harvey who can make guys miss. That really helped this team seal the deal against the Titans in week 1. Can they actually get it going early in the game, though? That'll be the bigger question.
Yeah, for sure. In the NFL, it's all about winning in the trenches. Both these teams want to win up front. They want to dominate on the ground and set things up for the passing game. So, look, we can say this every single week in the NFL. Whoever wins the trenches is going to win the game. But I think that approves doubly right here with this game against the Colts and Broncos. But coming up, guys, we are going to close out this show by talking about our keys to victory for both teams and how, again, these trench play is going to really come down to it for both of these teams. But first, the NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it just fits however you want to bet. You got player props, you got building the same game parlay, or even got jumping in the live as the live action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're just watching your team or keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy on Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by using FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Alrighty, Locked On Colts, Locked On Broncos fans, we are back yet again to close out this show talking all about this big matchup this weekend. Again, the big key to victory is just getting Peyton Manning back to Indy, but I promise I won't talk about that too much more here on this show here. But Sayre Bedinger from Locked On Broncos, give me your most important keys to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think key number 1 is going to be Bo Nix playing mistake-free football. I think that's going to be huge for this Broncos team. Obviously, we talked about the turnovers last week. I felt like they had 7 plays or 7 instances in this game where they deliberately set the opposing team up with points. You're not going to win very often in the NFL doing that. So Bo Nix with 3 turnovers in specific, you've got to be more efficient with the football. I think rushing the passer is always one of my top keys to victory. We did not see Daniel Jones with too dirty of a uniform after that game against the Dolphins. So can you hit him? Can you get to him? Can you create pressure that causes him to make too fast of decisions with the football? I think that's going to be key. And then, as you mentioned, the trenches, dominating on the offensive side of the ball and really establishing early on, hey, we're not just going to run the ball for the sake of doing it. We're going to run the ball because that's how we want to dictate the entire pace of this game. So I think those are my 3 keys to victory. Bo Nix playing efficient, get after the quarterback, and run the ball early for the Denver Broncos.
Love it. Love it. I think that is very important. Now, for the Colts, it's just the 3 keys are do the opposite of all those things, make those 3 things hard for the Colts. Yes. But no, to go into exactly what mine are, I think the first one here for the offense with Daniel Jones, we saw a lot of success last week. Again, points on 100% of their offensive drives. That's not sustainable. You're not going to do that against the Denver Broncos, but keep the offense ahead of schedule. Keep things positive. Even if you're going to have a minimal gain on the play, make sure it's a gain on the play. So keep that success rate high. Get out of 3rd and 10, out of 3rd and 12, because this Broncos defense will make you pay if you're in 3rd and 12, 3rd and 14, 3rd and 15. It's hard to convert those in the NFL, but especially against this type of defense. Going to the offensive line, continue pitching that perfect game that they basically pitched in week 1. 2 new starters on the interior, Tanner Bortolini, Mac Gonsalves. I thought they were fantastic. And the Miami Dolphins tested them all game long. 51% blitz rate in week 1. Daniel Jones was pressured 6 times, hit once, and sacked once. That is a fantastic showing from young players on the interior. Keep that going against some really good players on this Broncos defensive line. Zach Allen, Nick Bonito. They're paid handsomely because they are great players. And then on the other side of the ball, force Bo Nix into turnover. So I guess I really am doing the opposite of your first one there, Sayre, where, again, this Colts team was able to take a lead early last year and be on the cusp of putting it into a big deficit because they forced turnovers. They forced those turnovers, made Bo Nix antsy in the pocket, and he threw some pretty boneheaded picks, and the game didn't swing back in the other direction until the Colts started turning the ball over, from fumbles to interceptions to, again, whatever happened with A.D. Mitchell and Jonathan Taylor in that game. It was a crazy one. But force those turnovers early on Bo Nix, get in his head and develop that lead early, and then the Colts can just get into their game plan. So for me, again, on offense, keep that success rate high, keep the ball moving forward at all times, avoid the negative plays and penalties. O-line, keep doing what you're doing. Please give me a repeat of week 1. And then on defense, to close this out, I really just need this Colts team to force those turnovers. They forced 3 on Tua pretty early in the last game. Can they do the same thing with Bo Nix? That's going to be the key to victory in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. The Broncos, we talked about this in last week's crossover too, but the Broncos aren't even very good when they are even in the turnover battle. I mean, they have a pretty significant losing record under Sean Payton when they're just, hey, we're matching, whether we turn the ball over the same number of times or whether it's 0-0, it doesn't matter. They don't have a great record when they're not forcing the issue, when they're not the ones that are winning the turnover battle. So that's always key in the NFL. Obviously, you want to take care of the football. You want to play ball control. You want to create long fields for the opposing team. When you're giving the ball away, you're giving extra opportunities to a team like the Colts that you said, 100% success rate in terms of scoring the football when they had chances. So yeah, I think that's a huge thing in this game, is not just taking care of the ball, but actively taking it away from the other team. That's where the newcomers for Denver are going to be huge. Talanoa Hufanga forced a fumble in week 1. If Dre Greenlaw plays this week, Jahdae Barron had a fumble recovery. So the newcomers for Denver's defense making an impact in that way already.
Absolutely. And Sayre, you're getting my dog all excited here. He's
love
agreeing
it.
with everything you're saying here.
Yes.
But yeah, before we get out of here, though, I don't know if we want to make a full score prediction here, Sayre. But
Sure.
one prediction I want to make is I think the kicking battle is going to be big in this one. And you guys know from Locked On Colts, I hate talking kickers. But when you have defensive coordinators like this and talented defenses, I think the Colts defense is pretty underrated in talent. They're not Broncos level, but I think they're going to be a pretty good showing this week. I think the kicking battle is going to be pretty big for both these teams, because I think a lot of this game is going to be about who can get to 20 points first, who can get around 20 points first. It might be a little bit of a slugfest as an early season game. So I think the kicking battle is going to be pretty big in this one.
Yeah, it is. That's another area where you can't really afford to have missed opportunities, right? If you're missing field goals in this game, it's just like a turnover. You're setting the other team up with great field position. So, yeah, the kicking game, Will Lutz has been very good for the Broncos. Of course, last year had a block kick against Kansas City that, lives in everybody's minds rent free at this point. But also a rookie punter. The Broncos rookie punter, Jeremy Crawshaw, was awesome in week 1 after a terrible preseason. So we'll see how he can do on the road, for the first time here going up against the Colts. He helped pin Cam Ward deep, which is what the Broncos defense needed, long fields to work with. Can you do that against the Colts once again?
Yeah, that's another big part of this game, is just that field position, because with the new kickoff rule, teams are returning the ball out to the 45, 50-yard line sometimes. So that field position will be big. So when you do decide to punt it, can you get that offense starting in their own 10, within their own 5? We could go on for another half hour talking about special teams here, because we're both nerds like that, Sayre. But to all you guys listening from Locked On Colts, Locked On Broncos, make sure you're tuning into our shows the rest of the week to really break down this matchup between the two teams. I think it's going to be a really exciting weekend. Look, for me, I'm expecting more of a lower scoring game. Are you in the same boat there, Sayre, or do you think it's going to be offensive explosion somehow?
I like what you said about first to 20. First to 20 should be pretty in the clear in this game, because, yeah, the Broncos still figuring things out. If we see an offensive explosion from them, I think it would be rather unexpected. But I go into every crossover saying this, so I don't want your listeners to get upset with me. The Broncos are 17-0 until they ain't, right? And I know that Colts fans feel the same way. It's 17-0 until we ain't. So we'll see what happens. But I think I like what you said. First to 20 in this game seems right.
Yep, 2 undefeated teams squaring off this season, both with positive point differentials. I mean, these are powerhouses right now in the league, the Colts and the Broncos. Make sure you guys are excited to tune in this weekend on Sunday afternoon. So afternoon game for Colts fans on Eastern time zone. Really fun game coming up. We do want to thank you guys, though, for making Locked On Colts and Locked On Broncos your first listen today. The NFL season is finally here. So if your next listen, get a double dose of Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler Madman Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you to the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube wherever you listen to your podcast. If you guys don't already, make sure you're following us on socials at Zach Hicks2 and at Sayre Bedinger. We make it very easy for you guys to find us on socials there. And subscribe to us on YouTube as well, wherever you get your podcast. We'll have a great day, and you guys, we'll see you back here on our respective shows tomorrow.